Dark clouds were forming over Europe. People were going about their daily lives in the Netherlands, thinking war might pass them by, but on a cold May morning German troops invaded. Within only a few days the Dutch army was forced to surrender. Bombers from the German Air Force dropped heavy loads of explosives on Rotterdam, flattening neighborhoods and forcing thousands of people to flee. Under Nazi occupation more than 100,000 Jewish men, women and children were arrested and taken away to camps. Only a small number would survive to return. In the middle of this growing terror lived an elderly watchmaker named Casper Ten Boom and his two unmarried daughters, Betsy and Corrie. They were ordinary Dutch citizens with an extraordinary faith in God. Even at the risk of losing their freedom they chose to help those who were hunted. This story comes from the testimony of the only one of the three who lived to tell it, Corrie Ten Boom. Corrie was born in 1892, the youngest of 4 children of Casper and Cornelia Ten Boom. The family lived in the city of Haarlem, the capital of North Holland. Their tall, narrow house on a busy street had a watch shop on the ground floor and small living rooms and bedrooms above. In Dutch they affectionately called their home, the Beach. Every day father read aloud from the Bible in different translations. They prayed together, sang together, and tried to live by what they read. Guests and neighbors always felt welcome. As the family grew, space became tight. When elderly aunts moved in, father bought the house next door and joined it to their own by building a passageway and spiral staircase. The floors did not match, so the building became a maze of odd levels and hidden corners, something that later would become a surprising advantage in their secret work. Corrie's early years were happy. She learned honesty, discipline, and compassion from her parents. Like many young women she dreamed of marriage. She fell deeply in love, but her hopes were crushed when the young man appeared at the house with his fiancée. His mother had thought Corrie's social standing was not good enough. Heartbroken, Corrie went to her room. Her father followed and gently told her that love is the strongest force on earth, and when it is taken away it hurts deeply. He encouraged her to find another channel through which love could flow. Corrie prayed and gave her pain to Jesus, deciding that her life belonged completely to him. She later said she never became a frustrated old spinster because God had cared for her heart. After this decision Corrie devoted herself to caring for her aging aunts and working alongside her sister Betsy. Together they ran Bible clubs for young people in the city and started a club for children with mental disabilities. Corrie even wrote a small pamphlet called Common Sense Not Needed about this work. When their mother suffered a stroke in 1918, Betsy took over the household duties and Corrie stepped into the family watch shop. She quickly showed a gift for business and became the first licensed female watchmaker in the Netherlands after training in Switzerland. Even after their mother died in 1921 the family kept an open home. Missionaries from Indonesia sent their children to stay with the Ten Booms for schooling, and there was always room in the beach for someone in need. For years the war in Europe felt far away. The Dutch hoped they would be spared as in the First World War. But on May 10, 1940 Germany invaded and within weeks life changed completely. The Nazis seized radios to control information, but the Ten Booms hid one inside the steps of their house. At night they gathered around it to hear news from London and messages from their queen in exile, which gave them courage. They also heard Hitler's speeches, which grew more furious and frightening as time passed. One night enemy planes roared overhead dropping bombs. Corrie went to the kitchen and cut her hand on a piece of shrapnel. Later she told Betsy, "If I had stayed in bed I might have been killed." Betsy replied, "There are no ifs with God. Being in the center of His will is our only safety." Corrie would hold on to those words. Gradually the persecution of Jews became obvious. They were forced to wear the Star of David, their shops were attacked, their houses raided, and then they were taken away. One day father and Corrie pulled a Jewish neighbor into their home to protect him from an attack. Corrie's brother Willem and his son Kik were already finding hiding places for Jews. When Corrie asked too many questions, her nephew warned her that if she wanted to help the underground she must stop asking. This shocked her. She and her family felt called to help as Christians but had not thought of themselves as political. Their turning point came when a man arrived with an orphan Jewish baby. A local pastor had refused to take the child because it was too risky. Father Ten Boom immediately took the baby in, and Betsy and Corrie supported his decision. They would risk their lives to save others. Corrie used her experience organizing youth groups to build a network of helpers. Young men and women volunteered. When they heard that all the babies in a Jewish orphanage in Amsterdam were to be killed, Corrie's boys rescued every one of them with the help of sympathetic German soldiers who no longer wished to serve Hitler. The Ten Boom home became a safe place for anyone in danger. Father said clearly, "I will welcome anyone who comes to my house, whether Jewish or not," though they had a special love for the Jewish people. Soon the beach was crowded with desperate visitors, mothers with children, young adults, the elderly, each facing arrest simply for being Jewish. They tried to stay quiet but their activity increased. They needed more food than their ration cards allowed. A friend named Fred Kerenstra managed to get them 100 ration cards by faking a robbery and taking a beating to cover his tracks. Secret codes were devised for phone calls. A small sign in the window let resistance workers know whether it was safe to enter. To prepare for a raid, they built a secret hiding place in Corrie's bedroom at the top of the stairs, the room furthest from the street. The new wall was built into the ceiling and floor so it would sound solid if knocked. A closet with linens hid the entrance, usually covered by a suitcase. 6 people could squeeze inside for up to 2 days with only a small opening for air. Buzzers were installed around the house to give warning. They practiced drills to hide everything and make the home look as if only 3 people lived there. Within 1 minute everyone had to be inside the secret room. This careful training saved lives. One day a man named Jan Vogel came to Corrie asking for money to free his arrested wife. Believing his story, Corrie helped him, not knowing he was a traitor. Later Nazis raided the house during a Bible study. Betsy managed to press the buzzer. The guests rushed to the hiding place while the unusual layout of the beach slowed the soldiers. Corrie, sick in bed, was arrested along with her family. Father refused the offer to stay home if he would stop helping people. They were all taken away. Corrie later learned they had been betrayed by the same man she had helped. They were first held at a police station and then taken to Scheveningen prison on the coast. Corrie and Betsy saw their father for the last time as he quoted Psalm 91, "He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty." He died 10 days after his arrest and was buried in an unmarked grave. Corrie, separated from Betsy because of illness, spent weeks in solitary confinement, not knowing what had happened to her family or the hidden Jews. A coded message from her sister Noli finally reached her saying, "All the watches are safe," meaning all the Jewish people had escaped the raid. Corrie's interrogator began to soften as she testified about her faith. One day he showed her dangerous papers seized from her house. Instead of using them as evidence he burned them in his stove, sparing many lives. Corrie said she understood then the verse about Jesus taking the record of our sins and nailing it to the cross. A nurse risked her life to give Corrie a small Bible, which she read constantly for comfort. After nearly 3 months Corrie was put on a train with other prisoners and saw Betsy again. They were sent first to Voot, a camp connected to the Philips factory where they worked on radio parts. Betsy grew weaker but they held worship services on their day off, drawing strength from God and from each other. They witnessed executions of men and the grief of their wives. Then the Nazis decided to empty the camp and the sisters were transported to Ravensbrück, the notorious women's concentration camp in northern Germany. At Ravensbrück they were stripped naked for inspection. Corrie felt humiliated and cold, thinking she could not bear it. Then she remembered Jesus on the cross, stripped of his garments, and realized she was sharing a small part of his suffering. The camp was ruled by cruelty. Guards had even been trained in how to be harsh. Yet in this darkness Corrie and Betsy continued to pray, help other prisoners, and hold secret Bible readings. In Ravensbrück the cruelty grew worse. The women were made to stand naked in front of the guards. They were checked like animals. The cold was deep. The food was almost nothing. Work was hard and the days were long. The guards were trained to be cruel. They liked to show power. Many women lost hope. Even in that dark place Corrie and Betsy did not stop caring for others. They shared what little they had. They spoke words of comfort. They prayed when they could. They tried to keep the small light of faith alive. Sometimes they would sing quietly, and for a moment people remembered a life before the war. In tiny acts they showed love to the frightened and the weak. Betsy became very weak. She had always been gentle and kind, and she reached out to help anyone who needed it. Slowly her body gave out. Corrie stayed by her side and tried to give what care she could, but there was little to do. When Betsy died, Corrie felt a deep grief and loss. She missed her sister with all her heart. At the same time she felt a strange peace. Betsy's faith had been strong, and Corrie believed Betsy was with God now. That thought gave Corrie some comfort in the pain. Then, by a strange turn of events, Corrie was allowed to leave the camp. Nobody could fully explain why. To Corrie it felt like an act of God. She did not know at the time that Betsy would not leave with her. The news of Betsy's death reached her later and the sorrow was hard to bear. Yet Corrie held on to her faith. She remembered the words her father had taught them, trust God in every trial. When Corrie returned to her home city after the war, the house felt both familiar and changed. Some things were gone, some things had been kept safe. The watch shop had been part of so many lives. Corrie learned more about what had happened while she was gone. She learned that many of the people they had tried to save had lived because of the care of many brave friends. She thought often of her father and of the courage the family had shown. The house, the beach, had been the place where love had been given again and again. After the war Corrie felt she must tell the story of what had happened. She wanted people to know how ordinary people had made choices to help others. She wanted to speak about faith, about hope, and about the power of forgiveness. She traveled and spoke to many groups of people. Her voice was simple and clear. She told how fear can be overcome when love leads the way. One of the most moving parts of her work came from what she taught about forgiveness. Corrie believed that holding on to anger only hurts the person who holds it. She learned to forgive the captors who had hurt her and her loved ones. Later, she met people who had once been part of that cruelty. She did not meet them to punish them. Instead she offered forgiveness. In one moving meeting she reached out to a former guard who came forward. She spoke to him and forgave him. That moment showed to many how deep mercy can be. Corrie continued to tell the story. She spoke not to make people feel guilty, but to help them see how one life of faith can touch many lives. She spoke about small choices. She spoke about saying no to evil and yes to love. Her words reached people in many places and in many languages. The story of the Ten Boom family became a lesson for how quiet courage can change things. That in time the home they had used as a hiding place became known to many more people. Visitors came to see the rooms where the secret was kept. They stood in the same spaces and tried to feel the courage that had filled those walls. The house kept living memories of those who had risked everything to save others. Corrie's life after the war became a life of service. She kept speaking and teaching. She helped those who had lost so much find hope to live again. Her message was not full of empty words. It came from the hard place she had been through. People listened because they saw she had paid a real price and still lived with deep love and trust. This is the true story of a watchmaker's family who chose to stand for others. Casper, Betsy and Corrie gave what they had to protect the hunted. Some paid with their lives. But the one who survived took their story out into the world. She reminded people that even when the world seems darkest, a single act of love can make a difference. She showed that forgiveness can heal even the deepest wounds. Her life became a clear light for many who had lost their way. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. The Ten Boom family showed that faith is not only a private feeling. It is shown by what we do for others. If you like this video, please subscribe for more true stories of courage and faith. Leave a comment to tell us which part of Corrie's story meant the most to you. Thank you for watching, and may we all find the strength to choose love when it is hardest to do so.